Picture this. It's 2004, you're at some swanky Chicago club, surrounded by the city's elite.
Champagne flowing. Yeah.
Exactly. But instead of small talk, you overhear two powerful figures casually plotting a multi-million-dollar kickback scheme.
Sounds like a movie.
It does, doesn't it?
Uh,
Well, that's the reality we're diving into today. Illinois politics, where ambition and corruption often go hand in hand.
a world of backroom deals and shady characters, all vying for power and influence. And our story begins at a place called the Standard Club, a favorite haunt for Chicago's movers and shakers. This is where we first meet Stuart Levine.
Ah, Stuart Levine, a man who held positions on not one, but two crucial Illinois state boards. We're talking about the Health Facilities Planning Board, A&D, the Teachers Retirement System.
The Teachers Retirement System, better known as TRS, was responsible for managing the pensions of thousands of Illinois teachers.
It's pretty shocking to think that someone would use a system designed to protect the financial future of educators for their own personal gain.
Shocking is an understatement. Levine was basically using his positions to orchestrate these intricate schemes, promising millions of dollars to individuals in exchange for steering business their way through the TRS board.
We're talking about serious money here. Almost $4 million promised to one person alone.
Yeah, the scale of corruption was massive. But Levine's world came crashing down when the FBI showed up at his door, revealing they had been tapping his phone and had recordings of his illicit activities.
Imagine the shock. One minute you're living the high life, the next you're facing federal charges.
It's a classic tale of hubris and downfall. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Levine was given a choice: cooperate with the FBI or face the full force of the law.
Quite the dilemma, to say the least. So, who did Levine implicate?
Well, the investigation quickly expanded, and one of the names that came up was Tony Resco, a close advisor to the then-governor, Rod Blagojevich.
Blagojevich, the charismatic governor, with his sights set on the White House.
Exactly. And Resco, despite initially being cautious, ultimately agreed to participate in the TRS scheme, lured by the promise of a massive payout.
But when he realized the FBI was closing in, Resco went into full-on panic mode.
Think bug detectors, burner phones, the whole 9 yards.
It's almost comical the lengths he went to cover his tracks.
It does show the level of paranoia that sets in when you realize the walls are closing in.
Now, another key figure in this saga was Joseph Joe Carey, a well-respected political fundraiser for the Democratic Party.
You wouldn't expect someone with Carey's reputation to be mixed up in this kind of scandal.
Right, it's surprising. But during an intense interrogation by U.S. Attorney Reed Charr, Carey broke down and confessed.
And his confession was a bombshell. Not only did he admit to his own involvement, but he also revealed Blagojevich's presidential ambitions and his alleged plan to trade state contracts for campaign donations.
So behind the governor's reformer image, there was this whole other side, this ambition that seemed to justify any means.
It really makes you think about the price of power and the compromises people are willing to make to achieve it.
And as if this whole situation wasn't complicated enough, we then have Blagojevich's father-in-law, Alderman Richard Mell, enter the picture.
Now, their relationship was already strained, but things reached a boiling point when Blagojevich decided to shut down a landfill owned by a relative of Mell's.
It was a personal vendetta playing out on the political stage.
Exactly. Feeling betrayed, Mell went to the press, accusing Blagojevich's administration of corruption and selling government jobs.
The irony being that Blagojevich was trying to distance himself from Mell to protect his own image.
Yeah, talk about a backfire. With these public accusations flying around, the FBI knew they had to question Blagojevich directly.
I can't imagine the tension in that room. You have these two FBI agents, Daniel Kane and Patrick Murphy, sitting across from a governor who's known for his charm and ability to spin a story.
It must have been quite the showdown.
Blagojevich, unsurprisingly, tried to dodge the questions and even flat out lied about his involvement in fundraising activities.
A crucial mistake. Lying to the FBI is a federal crime, and it gave them the leverage they needed to push the investigation further.
The net was closing in. The FBI decided to indict Tony Resco, but he panicked and fled the country.
It's a classic flight response. He thought he could outrun the consequences of his actions.
But his escape was short-lived. He eventually returned to Chicago, only to be arrested by FBI agents waiting for him at the airport.
Talk about a dramatic homecoming. You can't hide from the law forever.
Despite the growing scandal, Blagojevich managed to win re-election, although under a cloud of suspicion.
It shows the power of incumbency and perhaps the public's willingness to give someone the benefit of the doubt, at least for a while.
Meanwhile, Resco's trial began, and he was ultimately found guilty. Facing a lengthy prison sentence, he decided to cooperate with prosecutors, hoping to reduce his time behind bars.
A desperate move, but understandable given the circumstances. But even with Resko's cooperation, they still didn't have enough to directly tie Blagojevich to the crimes.
So the FBI decided to take a bold step. They bugged Blagojevich's campaign headquarters.
Wiretaps, hidden microphones, the whole works. They were determined to catch him red-handed.
A risky move, but one that would ultimately change the course of the investigation.
So the FBI is listening in. They've bugged Blagojevich's headquarters, hoping to catch him saying something, well, incriminating.
And they did.
They did. They caught him discussing the U.S. Senate seat, the one that would be opening up with Obama's presidential win.
And what was Blagojevich's take on that?
Well, you'd think he'd see it as a chance to serve the people of Illinois, find the best person for the job.
Right.
But instead, he saw it as an opportunity to, how can I put this delicately?
To cash in.
Yeah, pretty much. The wiretaps caught him talking about using the Senate appointment for personal gain.
What, like campaign contributions?
Campaign contributions, high-paying jobs for his friends, maybe even an ambassadorship or two.
He was really going for it, wasn't he?
He was, and some of the things he said, well, they were pretty shocking. At one point, he actually compared the Senate seat to a valuable commodity. Said something like, I've got this thing and it's expletive golden and I'm not just giving it up for expletive nothing.
Wow, that's pretty brazen.
It was. That quote really became a symbol of his arrogance, his total disregard for, ethics and all that.
So the FBI is listening to all this.
Yeah.
Building their case.
Right. And it wasn't just shady politics anymore. This was potential extortion, bribery, abuse of power.
Serious stuff.
Very serious. The wiretaps were basically undeniable proof of Blagojevich's criminal intent. He wasn't even trying to hide it.
And then, what happened?
Then, boom, FBI swoops in, arrests Blagojevich.
Can you imagine waking up one morning and your house is surrounded by federal agents?
Talk about a rude awakening. Blagojevich, this guy who once held the highest office in Illinois, dreamed of being president.
And now?
Now he's staring down a prison sentence.
What a fall from grace.
It was. His arrest sent shockwaves through Illinois politics. Nobody could believe it.
What about the trial? How did that play out?
Well, it was a media circus, of course. Blagojevich maintained his innocence throughout the whole thing.
Claimed he was a victim of overzealous prosecutors.
Exactly. Tried to play it off like his conversations were just, normal political talk. Nothing criminal.
But the evidence was pretty damning, wasn't it?
It was. Those wiretap recordings were hard to ignore. And in the end, the jury found him guilty on multiple counts of corruption.
Including attempted extortion and wire fraud.
That's right. It was a huge victory for the rule of law. Showed that even powerful politicians aren't above the law.
So what happened to Blagojevich?
He was sentenced to 14 years in federal prison.
14 years. That's a long time.
It is. It sent a message, that corruption has consequences.
But wait, didn't he get out early?
He did. After serving 8 years, he was granted clemency by President Trump.
That was a controversial move.
Very controversial. A lot of people felt his crimes were too serious to warrant leniency.
So he's a free man now. But what about his legacy? How will he be remembered?
It's complicated. On one hand, he was a charismatic guy, a skilled politician, connected with voters.
But on the other hand,
He betrayed the public trust. Pretty spectacularly.
it's hard to see him ever mounting a political comeback.
You think, after everything that happened?
I don't know. Stranger things have happened, I guess. But it seems unlikely.
It would be an uphill battle, that's for sure. The stain of his conviction that's not going away anytime soon.
This whole saga really makes you think about Illinois politics. Was Blagojevich just a bad apple? Or is there something more systemic going on?
That's the big question, isn't it? His case exposed a culture of, pay-to-play politics. It made people wonder, how deep does this go?
And what about the people around Blagojevich, his inner circle?
Oh, they were definitely complicit. Advisors, fundraisers, lobbyists, businessmen, they were all part of it.
It takes a village to commit corruption.
Something like that. It shows how easy it is to get caught up in that kind of culture, to turn a blind eye or even actively participate.
So we've gone from kickback schemes and FBI wiretaps to the downfall of a governor. It's a wild ride.
It is. And it all started with that one guy, Stuart Levine.
It's hard to believe this is all real, isn't it? Like something out of a movie.
Life imitating art, as they say. But beyond the drama, I think there's a valuable lesson here about the fragility of power and the importance of holding our leaders accountable.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, What's the takeaway for our listeners? What can we learn from the Blagojevich saga?
Well, here's something to ponder. This whole story shows us how power, without integrity and a commitment to the common good, can be a very dangerous thing.
We need to be vigilant.
Absolutely. We have to hold our leaders accountable, demand transparency, and it starts with us, the citizens.
That's a powerful message to end on. Thanks for guiding us through this tangled web of, well, everything.
It's been my pleasure, and remember, there's always more to learn, more to question, and more to hold our leaders accountable for.
Blagojevich is out of prison now, but it's not like it erases everything that happened.
Not at all. The damage is done, you know. He can say he's innocent all he wants, try to spin it as some political vendetta.
Right.
But at the end of the day, he was convicted. And the public, they remember those wiretaps, those attempts to, use his office for personal gain.
It's tough to see him making a comeback in politics after all that.
You really think so? I mean,
Yeah,
it'd be a tough sell. The stain of that conviction, it's gonna follow him.
this whole thing really makes you wonder about Illinois politics. I mean, was Blagojevich an anomaly, or is there something deeper going on there?
Right. Was he a bad apple
Or is the whole barrel rotten?
Exactly. His case really exposed this culture of pay-to-play politics. It made people question the whole system.
And those around him, his inner circle, they couldn't have been completely in the dark, could they?
Of course not. Advisors, fundraisers, lobbyists, all those guys, they were all part of this web.
So, in a way, they enabled him, right?
Whether intentionally or not, yeah. It shows how easy it is to get caught up in that kind of environment, to just go along with it.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here. From those initial kickback schemes to wiretaps, a governor's downfall, it's been a wild ride.
It has. And it all started with that one guy, Stuart Levine. Amazing how one person can set off a chain of events like that.
It's almost too crazy to be true. You'd think this was a movie plot.
Truth is stranger than fiction sometimes. But I think the Blagojevich saga offers some important lessons. About power, about accountability.
About the importance of a free press, holding those in power accountable.
Exactly. It's a reminder that we can't just sit back and assume everything's running smoothly.
So as we wrap up, what's the main takeaway for our listeners? What can we learn from all of this?
Well, I think Blagojevich's story is a cautionary tale. It shows what can happen when power goes unchecked, when ambition trumps integrity.
And the importance of staying informed, staying engaged.
Right. We need to hold our leaders to a higher standard, demand transparency. And that starts with us, the citizens.
Powerful stuff. Thanks for helping us unpack all of this.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, there's always more to learn, more to question. Keep digging, keep those questions coming.